Welcome to the DNVR Scoop. I'm your host, Phillip Dukes, aka Dukes the Scoop. Check me out on Twitter and Instagram at Dukes the Scoop. Make sure, hey, y'all see my new hat, right? Okay. See that embroidery? So follow me on Instagram or Twitter if you want one. I may do a giveaway or a drawing or something. So I've been under the weather, missed y'all, but I'm back. And I finally want to talk about the transfer portal. The first wave of the transfer portal. I feel like this is just the beginning. A strong class so far. When you look at what went out for Colorado and what they replaced it with, I think you'll be really excited about some of the things that I've learned about some of these guys. So of course, crown jewels in the class. One on defense, one on offense. Offense being Kaidon Salter. We talked about him ad nauseum. Everybody knows who he is at this point. Won some really big games for Liberty. Was recruited at a very high level out of high school. There was an issue, I forgot what actually happened, but ends up at Liberty. Cool. Goes crazy. Um, beat upset some really big time teams in his time at Liberty. Gets into the portal, and now he's finally has his opportunity to play power forward football. A true dual threat guy, somebody who I feel like will provide veteran leadership. Who you have to put him on the field at some point, whether Julian Lewis wins the job or not. I do think it's going to be an open competition. Competition breeds championships. When you look at what Georgia right now, what they're doing, where you lose a guy like Carson Beck and you just backfill with another 5 star who was with Gunner, aka Gunner, and they already have another 5 star behind him and Jalen Rashada. So if you want, and they just let a 5 star go to Kentucky last year in the quarterback room. So if you want to be a championship program, then you need to do championship things, which is making sure that you have quarterback depth. So I think that Kaidon Salter was a huge pickup. We talked about it on the show before, how college ready I think Julian Lewis is, but I also believe that there are just certain things that a true freshman won't be able to command from a locker room, a senior locker room, where you're going to have guys who play JUCO, some 6 year guys on there, some guys who've used the COVID rule. It's going to be hard for an 18-year-old to command those guys without beating somebody. So, or without pretty much coming into the locker room, learning what needs to happen, learning the ins and out of that locker room before you're handed the job. So I think competition is great. In an ideal world, you would like to see Salter come in, be the quarterback, and Juju learn, get some snaps, and you still got your quarterback of the future in the ideal world. Or maybe Juju is the guy, and Juju is just the all-world quarterback as a prodigy as we've seen him before. But either way, you got options, and now you feel a lot better about the quarterback room, knowing that you're not solely dependent on a true freshman as your quarterback. And now we're having a guy like Salter who has documented production. I think that that's part of that's one of the ways that you replace a guy like Shador Sanders is you bring in two guys, two very talented guys. And I think as far as that goes, Salter is probably the crown jewel of the transfer portal class on the offensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, defensively, Jaheem Oates, the grown man. Saw a picture of him. I thought he was 30. Uh, Big guy, 6'5", 330. Some people say 320. I put together so well. A really strong guy. Fell out of favor in Alabama this year for whatever reason. But as I've said multiple times already, if you're good enough for Nick Saban, you're good enough for me. When you think about adding him to that defensive line rotation, having somebody with that size, I think the only person that I saw in the conference last year who reminded me and could do the things that Otis could do would be Lee Hunter, who was at UCF last year. Very similar in size, very similar in skill set. I think Lee Hunter just got a boatload of money to go to Texas Tech in the transfer portal over going to the NFL. So shout out to Jaheem Oates. Now, one of the guys that I really liked in this class was Reginald Hughes from Jacksonville State. Reason being, not only was he a running hit linebacker. He's played a ton of football, played in the scheme that was really good, that provides starters to Power Four football year after year. But in junior college, he was a pass rusher. He primarily rushed the passer. His freshman year in JUCO, went crazy, goes to Jacksonville State, learns how to play the. Well, he already played linebacker in high school as well, but played the stand-up linebacker role. So he's a guy who could be more like a. He has some multiplicity in his game where he can rush the passer. He had 4.5 sacks last year. Probably left another 2.5 on the table as far as sacks that he could have completed, and pressures. They had 8 pressures last year, if I'm not mistaken. So when you talk about a guy who can blitz, gets there in a hurry, runs hard, runs fast, will hit you, and has a nasty disposition, Reginald Hughes is a linebacker that embodies all of those things. I think he was a really under the radar signing. A lot of people wanted to get him on campus. I know Georgia Tech was crazy about him. So was Kentucky. I believe South Carolina, LSU were some other people who took a look at him. So Reginald Hughes is a guy that I like a lot in this class, and I think he'll play a lot next year, especially with the loss of Nakai Hill Green. Let's talk about Joseph Williams. Nobody's been talking about Joseph Williams, the wide receiver out of Tulsa. Man, Joseph Williams is a baller. In high school, Joseph Williams played quarterback, receiver, running back, safety, whatever you needed him to returner. He hooped, ran track, whatever you needed. Joseph Williams was that guy. What I like the most about guys who are versatile is that it always boils down to simple one-on-one things and one-on-one concepts. What happens when the ball is in the air and and the both of us are in the vicinity? Joseph Williams has some of that Will Shepherd one hand go up and get it ability. Even though he's shorter than Shepherd, his catch radius is crazy. He's a phenomenal jumper. He was a track athlete in high school. Could jump out of the gym, and if you go back and you look at his highlights, you see routinely that he's making one-on-one plays where the quarterback may not have been throwing him open, but the pass was completed because of his effort. This guy I think can make an impact day one. He's a guy that you can throw it up to him and not worried about it. I really and a blend of a Will Shepherd and more and maybe a shorter guy, maybe right in that middle, like a 6'2", not quite 6'4". But man, when you talk about exciting freshman season, Joseph Williams is going to be here. Like, and not only are you getting a guy who has already done it at a high level, but he's got room to grow. You can get him in that wide receiver room. You can get him. You can allow him to take on the culture of the team, and he can embody that where he looks less and less like a transfer player, and more like a Buffalo. And I think that's super important. But that's probably, but I guess that would be my second tier after you go to Crown Jewels. The guys who I think will make an impact that a lot of people aren't talking about that I believe will have an impact this year would be Reggie Hughes and my man Joseph Williams from Tulsa. Now, uh, Carter Miller at ULM from ULM, interior offensive lineman, played some center last year, which I thought was really interesting. Going to provide some competition at the center position, can play either guard spot. So I think he's a really versatile offensive lineman, somebody who provides a guy who provides experience. He's played a ton of snaps, so I think that's going to be important to continue to top grade at positions where you feel like you're okay at. Everybody loves Cash Cleveland, but there's nothing wrong with some competition. This guy's played a lot, and I think that he's going to be really important. Let's talk about Zach Atkins, the tight end from Northeast Missouri State. He was out of high school. They called him a tweener. I think he weighed 190 pounds uh, his senior year. Well, he's up to 240. Put on 50 pounds. Still kept a lot of his speed. He's going to be somebody who's going to really help you in the passing game, and as well as he's a true tight end. As when you see guys who are about 6'3" at that tight end position, you automatically think H back, but you can put him up on the line. He can hold it. He can help you set the edge. He's definitely a mismatch for linebackers when it comes to getting out in space. So he's someone that I would be excited about. as you see Colorado start to bring more and more tight ends in, as you'll see that offensive coordinator Pat Shermer will have more running concepts. You'll see him get back to some of the things that a lot of people in Denver are familiar with. A lot of those two tight end sets from when he was the offensive coordinator with the Broncos, where it didn't have the success that I think they would have wanted with that backfield, but he showed that he was able to get a lot out of those guys, especially as it got later into the season. Outside, and when we talk about outside zone and stretch plays, tight ends are so important because when they get into the flat, you don't know what they're doing. They can either block or they can release. So thinking from that perspective, tight ends are so important when you do want to run outside zone and outside stretch, as you do have your tendency breakers after those plays when the tight end is in that space. So I think this is a guy who can help you a ton. Another guy I like a lot, Tawfiq Byard, the younger brother of Kevin Byard, two-time All-Pro safety. Man, this is a guy who played at South Florida, uh, played up in the box, also played a deep safety, was a track athlete in high school, ran the 55 meters. He's a guy who had 2 sacks last year. You can send him and he will get home. Has another guy who has a nasty disposition who will come up and tackle you. I had 55 tackles last year, if I'm not mistaken. Bayard is someone who I thought and I always say this when it comes to recruiting, sometimes it's who you beat. But as bad as LSU wanted him and the way that they produce safeties and defensive backs, it only bodes well for what Colorado was getting when a team like that wants you in the secondary. So I think Bayard is somebody who has NFL pedigree. They have another brother who's actually playing defensive back at Middle Tennessee State. So has pedigree, has IQ, has want to, works really hard. South Florida was crushed about him leaving. They did not want to lose him. So another guy who has an opportunity to come show his skill set at the Power Four level after he's played at the Group of Five level at a very high clip. So I think that's another good get for Colorado. And so as you see, as we're getting to these players and you're starting to hear guys who have documented production, guys who've done it. There were a couple of specialists in the class that I want to give a shout out to. Damon Greaves, I would say Greaves, Greaves. I believe he's the punter. And I know there was a kicker in the class too. Let me see if I can find him. Buck Buchanan. Love that name. Now I had a guy I used to play with back in the day, middle school ball, Johannes Buchanan and Shamar, whose older brother played in the league. Shamar Buchanan played at Alabama, but Johannes played at Florida State. Parade All American, man. Shout out to Johannes, but his dad name was Buck Buchanan. All right, that's enough about me. All right, but there's a guy in this class that I want to talk about who may be the most athletic player in this entire class and could be one of the most athletic players in the entire secondary, and that's Makari Vickers. Makari Vickers from Oklahoma was a top 75 player coming out. Has great length, can run. Had some injuries at Oklahoma. I talked to people at Oklahoma who were in that program as Kanal Walker, Des Malone, guys who started at the cornerback position and have great relationships with. Everybody knows Makari is a toolsy guy that need to be in the right situation. When I say toolsy, I mean when you draw a corner, that's how you want them to look. The long arms, the tight skin, the hip flexibility, the smooth back pedal. We call it moonwalking. When you see guys who are that strong and are that explosive and tightly wound, when they have a smooth back pedal or they can quote unquote moonwalk, those are the type of guys that you look at and you say, man, dog, he has potential to play on Sundays. Getting him early, getting him while he still has multiple years of eligibility left is good because what I want to talk about is when you have guys with those plus athletic traits that haven't put it all together. Sometimes you have the perfect marriage. Coach Prime had plus athletic traits, so he's going to be able to give you some. So he's going to be able to give you some tips that you may not be able to get from certain people who don't or haven't possessed those traits. But what I like more than anything is a guy who was successful without having those traits, being able to teach you some of the tricks of the trade for when you aren't as fast or when you aren't as tall. Well, that's Coach Kevin Mathis. And so for somebody who was as sound technically as Coach Mathis was, when you go back and you look at his career with the Falcons and the Cowboys, him getting a guy like this, a big pretty baller, Clay. When I'm telling you, when you see this guy, and for those who love football, and when you go look at your corner, he's lean, he's long, he can run, strong. He has everything that you will want when it comes to projecting what a cornerback should look like. So I had played some safety before, versatile. Um, he is one of those signings that'll pay off dividends if he comes in, works hard, and Colorado can just really like put their hands on him in a way where you bring stuff out of him that you weren't able to get out of him at Oklahoma. Maybe at Oklahoma there weren't enough reps there. Maybe something didn't click. You know, the injuries, like due to the injuries and due to what you brought in, there weren't the reps there. I believe at Colorado, and I know from talking to people in that building, he's somebody that they're high on because of the traits that he has. And so I will say that make sure you watch out for Bakari Vickers. Someone, when you go look at his film, go look at his high school film, and you'll see the athleticism. And somebody who I think is flying under the radar that could be a really big get for the Buffs. All right, that's my time. I may have missed one or two, but those are the ones that I really focused on. There are going to be some guys that you're going to be happy about. No, there was the offensive lineman grad transfer out of Texas A&M. Uh, but yeah, man, and you're just getting started. Like there are going to be more and more guys that get in the portal right now. You'll see Colorado is involved with Tulane running back Makai Hughes, the older brother of Neem Alford, who Colorado flirted with for a while. Has a good and chief of staff and Coach Box and Coach Corey Phillips have a great relationship with the Alford family, who's Alford family, the daddy Malik Hughes or Kaori Alford, excuse me, Malik Alford, and who also goes by Kaori, has a great relationship with Colorado. Huge fan of Deion Sanders, so that could bode well. A lot of people think that Makai Hughes is an automatic uh, transfer to Oregon to go be with his little brother, but that is not the case. So I would watch Colorado in this one. All right, but yeah, man, as the playoffs start to go, you're going to see more guys jump in the portal who are currently playing for some of these teams on the 2 and the 3 depth chart. So Colorado ain't done. There's a lot more to come. And I cannot wait until you see how this class looks at the end. All right, that's my time. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Dukes D Scoop. And make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. The Scoop, I'm out.